So today I want to talk about the Brave stats thing, what character that might be for. So if you're not totally up to date, there was a data mine for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and essentially in the code for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate we have some names for potentially DLC characters. So the names in the code are Fighter Kind Paku, which is most likely Piranha Plant because in Japanese, Pakun Flower is the name of Piranha Plant. There's Fighter Kind Brave, who we're not sure who it is, and that's what I want to talk about today. And then there's Fighter Kind Jack, who most people are assuming and guessing is Joker for a variety of reasons. Mostly that Jack Frost is kind of the mascot for Atlas and the Shin Megami Tensei games, and therefore the Persona games. So yeah, that's who most people think Jack probably is. But Brave, we're not totally sure who that is. Most people have guessed Erik from Dragon Quest. This is mostly going off of leakers and things. Supposedly people know that we're supposed to get a Square Enix rep, and Erdrick is one of the names that has been talked about a lot. So yeah, but today I want to go over a bunch of other possibilities. We have kind of the stats for Brave, and I'll post a link in the description of this video of another video showing what putting those stats onto a different character looks like. And there's some interesting things. The character doesn't have a multi-jab, they can't wall jump, they seem pretty floaty when they jump, and they have a very strange slide to their run, so they kind of skid before turning directions, similar to like Luigi, which is pretty unique. I think Luigi, I think some people have said Ridley's kind of like that too, but I think Luigi's almost the only character in the game so far that has that. And then, of course, their codename in the game is Brave, which, given that Paku is basically just telling us who Piranha Plant is, and Jack does actually relate to Joker in some way, we assume Brave has to relate to this character as well. I will also say that Brave is in English. It's just the English word brave. Whereas Paku obviously is the Japanese word for Pakun Flower, that character. But it's possible they didn't codename Piranha Plant because we knew about it before the game even came out. And that may have always been decided. So they may have known, when they code that character, they don't have to hide it. But Brave is probably a codename, as I don't think there's any video game characters called Brave, and unless Joker has his own separate spot and Jack is something else. You get what I'm saying. There's almost certainly these are code names. So yeah, today I'm going to go over a bunch of possibilities of who this character might be. Okay, so first up, we have the most likely character, which is Erdrick from Dragon Quest. Erdrick is the original hero from the Dragon Quest series, has appeared in multiple Dragon Quest games, and is extremely popular in Japan. He's also designed by Akira Toriyama, so I know a lot of people have been talking about getting Goku in Smash for a long time, and we had the Smash ballot, and there was, a lot of people saying Goku probably got a ton of votes despite, not being a video game character first and foremost. So it's possible that they may have picked Erdrick because he has that Goku design look, and maybe they were like, well, people seem to want an Akira Toriyama design character. Dragon Quest is also extremely popular in Japan, so this would not be an out of left field pick for the Japanese audience. And there's some rumors that Square has been wanting to push Dragon Quest in the West a bit more, and characters like Marth and Roy really pushed Fire Emblem into the West. So hey, Dragon Quest, despite being released here in the West, has never really been super popular. Maybe getting a Dragon Quest character in Smash would open up Westerners to this series. So some slight issues here with this character, though, is the floatiness and the slide and stuff doesn't really strike me as something Erdrick might do. Also, supposedly the height for the character is about Ness's height. So this could work for Erdrick because Erdrick has a kind of chibi form. It looks a lot like Kid Goku, which is sort of his older design, but Sakurai is sometimes a sucker for the classic designs. So it's possible we get that. But I don't know if that character would skid. I don't know if they'd have a floaty jump. That's kind of the biggest things going against him, are the actual stats for the character. It's tough for most people to wrap their heads around how that would be Erdrick. But the biggest things going in his favor are that most of the leakers are saying that it's probably Erdrick. Vergeben, for a really long time, was saying we were going to get a Square Enix character in some form. He had supposedly heard 7 different character names, and the one he had heard the most was Dragon Quest characters. He had actually heard 3 names, Erdrick, Slime, and Luminari, but Erdrick was the one he heard the most. And in most of the leaks that we've heard about Erdrick, they almost always say he's going to have like alternate costumes, whether or not that's male and female form or other hero characters. That's kind of the big push for him. Now, the reason why he might fit the brave fighter specifically is because in Dragon Quest, the Japanese name is Yusha, which can kind of loosely translate to brave in English. It's more like hero or valor or valorous or something like that. But there is the symbol for brave is in there. The idea of this character being brave is in there. Now, once again, I will point out that in the code here, the name is brave in English, just the English word for brave. So why they didn't use the word Yusha, I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of another fault against it being Erdrick, but that's still our number 1 contender as of right now. Moving away from Erdrick and just going by that name Brave, a very obvious contender would be a character from Bravely Default. Obviously, it has Brave right in the name of the series, and it is a Square series. So, like I said, Vergeben has been saying for a long time that we'd get a Square character. It seems a lot of other insiders do believe we'll be getting another Square character at some point. But I will say almost all those leakers are in agreement that it's probably Erdrick. But hey, for the sake of looking at other places, especially because the character's name is Brave, and maybe Square has just done a really good job of giving out some false information that leakers have heard, let's look at Bravely Default here. So one interesting thing is that the characters of Bravely Default have both a art style form, from like the cover of the box and stuff like that, and also kind of a chibi, smaller design form in the game itself. And it's possible Sakurai could do that, which again would fit Brave's height stat, which is supposedly around the same height as Ness. Now, some people, this is kind of highly debated, don't believe that the height stat should really be looked at too closely, as there's some strange discrepancies about height in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Certain characters that you would think would be taller than they are actually have smaller height stats. So yeah, not necessarily that the character has to be a Ness-like character, but if it is, a Bravely Default character could fit. We had a leak a while back for Agnes, and a lot of people were kind of latching onto that, but it could be any Bravely Default character. I've seen some people say it might be Edea. I have no idea how to pronounce these names. So I've heard that as well, though Agnes, I think, is kind of the main face of the series. So yeah, it would be up to Square and Nintendo what character they chose if it is a Bravely Default character. Next up, I have another Square Enix character, and this one a lot of people are really hopeful for, and seems to be the main rival to Erdrick as who our Brave character might be. And that character is Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Sora fits really well for the stats for Brave. As far as the floatiness and the kind of skidding when they run, it really looks like how you might imagine a Kingdom Hearts Sora character moving in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. There is also the fact that Sora has a Valor form, which in Japanese is called Brave form. However, I will say once again that Brave in the code here is written in English. It's not the Japanese word for Brave, it is the English word for Brave, whereas Sora's Brave form would be the Japanese word for Brave. So, yeah, I don't know, and it's also kind of a small thing. Sora's form, would you really name the whole character after that one form? I guess if you're trying to codename the character, you might, but it's a little obscure. The main theme song to Kingdom Hearts 3 is called Face My Fears, which would mean being brave. So yeah, there's that. That could be why they chose Brave if the character is indeed Sora. Also, Shimomura is a Smash Brothers staple as far as making music goes, and Erdrick, the composer for Dragon Quest, is kind of tough to work with. He's historically difficult to get the rights to things, so it might be tough to get Dragon Quest into Smash because of that, whereas Kingdom Hearts, the music would probably be very easy to get since the composer is already on board. So that's one argument in favor of Sora against Erdrick. One other interesting thing for Sora is that a while back someone tweeted on Twitter, they put this picture up of Sora slashes into battle. It was just a mock image, but Shinji Hashimoto actually commented on it and said yes, and then deleted that tweet. So a lot of people were suspecting that maybe he thought the character actually got announced and was just excited and saying, yes, back, yeah, he's in, and then had to delete that because he jumped the gun and the character actually hadn't been announced yet and he just wasn't sure of it. Whether or not he would be that unsure of when they're actually announcing the character, I don't know. It's also possible he just deleted the tweet because he didn't want a ton of people commenting on it, liking it, and bugging him basically whether or not Sora is actually in the game, and he may have just been saying yes as he thought it was a cool idea. So once again, the best thing going in Sora's favor is the fact that the stats, the floatiness to the jump and the way the character moves around do feel like they could fit Sora, and he is a Square Enix character, which we're supposedly going to get another one. However, those leakers who are saying we're going to get another Square Enix character seem pretty firmly in the camp of Erdrick, that it's probably Erdrick. So yeah, that's the pros and cons to Sora right there. So next up is another Square series here, which is Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. That game is a mobile game and pretty much has every single Final Fantasy character in it. So it is possible, like one of the characters that Vergebin heard as a possible Square character was Sephiroth, that it may be the codename Brave is because of this Final Fantasy spin-off game, and it's just any second Final Fantasy character. Obviously, Final Fantasy is already in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with Cloud, so rights-wise, it would be probably easy to get another Final Fantasy character in there, at least easier than getting a whole nother series on board, legally and everything. So yeah, that's a possibility. However, codenaming the character off of a spin-off mobile game, I don't know. I don't think that's too likely. And it also just kind of opens up basically any Final Fantasy character is possible at that point. It is possible we get a character that is specifically from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, like a character that is specific to that series and not just one of the billions of Final Fantasy characters that are also in the game. But yeah, I kind of feel like that's very unlikely. Just to get the rest of the Square games out of the way, another Square game that has Brave in the title is Brave Fencer Musashi. This game's really cool and I really like it. However, it's not very likely. That game's pretty old at this point, pretty forgotten at this point. Not exactly the type of character that you'd think would be, I hate to say this, but worthy of Smash, deserving to get in Smash. Again, I really like the game. I think Brave Fencer Musashi is an awesome game, but I doubt that Square would push that over some of their bigger titles as a character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But the title does say Brave Fencer Musashi, so when we have a codename Brave in the game, gotta look at everything here. But again, I'm not very hopeful for that one. And now to finish up the possible Square characters with my personal bias favorite character, Gino. I doubt that Brave is codename for Gino. Again, we're basically only getting the idea that it's going to be a Square character from the leakers, and the leakers are pretty firmly saying that it's most likely Erdrick, so I hate to go against them and then still think it's going to be a Square character. Possible, but it's a tough call there. But the cool things going in favor of Gino is that he is a Brave character. Of course, you could say that about nearly every single video game character in existence, so that's a really flimsy argument. But hey, maybe the codename doesn't mean much. Maybe, they weren't really saying much with the codename and they don't want people to figure it out. So while Brave doesn't really have much to do with Gino besides the fact that he is a Brave character, there is something interesting going on here that I've heard proposed, which is the stats for the character. So the height being about Ness's height does feel about right for what you might expect Gino to be. Now, again, there is kind of two camps on the height thing, whether or not it's really important for the character. But the fact that the stats are floaty and the character does some sort of odd slide, I heard this really interesting idea that Gino is a possessed puppet. And it would be interesting if the way they had the character move around was like a possessed puppet, kind of ragdollish, which could have a floaty look to the jump and could definitely have that sort of skid slide to it. So while I'm not really putting my money on Gino at this point, at least not for the character codename Brave, yeah, it is possible that if he moved around it would be like that, and so those stats could potentially fit Gino. Moving away from square characters, we have the possibility of getting a Tales of character. This would be another Namco rep, which Namco is working on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, was always very closely working on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and only really has Pac-Man as a playable character in the game. In the Super Smash Bros. 4 DLC, we had Mii costumes, and we had some Namco-specific character Mii costumes. We had Heihachi from the Tekken series, and we had Lloyd from the Tales of series, specifically from Tales of Symphonia. However, there's another character, Yuri Lowell, who is from Tales of Vesperia, and in that game, his guild's name is Brave Vesperia. Now, obviously, the Tales of series has been seen in Smash in that Lloyd Mii costume before, so getting a Tales of character as a playable DLC character is possible, and Yuri Lowell would actually fit having his fighter's code name be Brave, because his guild is called Brave Vesperia. I don't know if the floatiness, the skid jump, the no wall jump, the lack of a rapid jab, all those things necessarily fit the character, however, and his guild being called Brave Vesperia is once again kind of like Sora's Brave form being, it's a little strange of a thing to pick for the code name for the character, but hey, it is possible. I have heard a lot of rumors that a Tales of character might be one of our DLC, though most of the time that is Lloyd. So worth mentioning Tales of here. I do think that is a possibility for one of the DLC characters. Whether or not that's actually Yuri Lowell and it's the Brave character, I don't know. But yeah, I do kind of suspect that a Tales of character is pretty likely as one of our DLC fighters. Another series that seems likely to get a character as part of our Super Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC is Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is a Capcom series and obviously is already represented in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We have the Rathalos assist trophy character and boss. It's a double assist trophy and boss character. But Monster Hunter is a really big series. It's one of Capcom's biggest series, and Capcom is already very on board for Smash. We have Mega Man, Ryu, and Ken all playable. So it's possible we could get a Monster Hunter character as one of our playable characters. They could fit the Brave code name because there is a style, a hunting style in Monster Hunter Generations called Brave Style, but that's, again, really reaching. It's kind of a strange thing to code name the character based on. However, I do think it's highly likely that a Monster Hunter character could be one of our DLC fighters. I'm just not so sure it's someone who could fit the Brave fighter stats and everything, but hey, worth a mention. Another possible character for who the Brave fighter could be is a Yokai Watch character. Yokai Watch is really popular in Japan, or at least it was for a while there, as a pretty big Pokemon rival game. It didn't really take off super big in the West, but it did get brought over here. It is known over here. Some people, did get into it and everything. So it is possible we could get a character from Yokai Watch. The floatiness, the skid running and stuff like that could fit some sort of yokai. Not sure which one they would choose, but there's also a reason this character could be the Brave fighter, and that is there is a Brave tribe in the Yokai Watch series. So different yokai are belonging to different tribes, and one of the tribes is Brave. So if the yokai they chose as a playable fighter was from the Brave tribe, they might use that as the character's code name. Less likely in my opinion, but something that could happen. Erdrick and Dragon Quest are more popular in Japan than they are in the West, and same thing goes for Yokai Watch, so it's possible that series might want to be pushed in the West, and Super Smash Bros. Seems to be a great way to do that. Now, going in a different direction here, it is possible this codename Brave character is not directly related to the word Brave, and there might be something else going on here. Paku, again, actually is short for Paku Flower, but did they really need to hide that one? Is that actually a code name, as the character was known about before the game was even out, and that may have always been known that was how they were going to announce the Piranha Plant fighter. However, Jack is certainly a code name, but maybe it doesn't have anything to do with Jack Frost. Maybe all they're really doing here is names with the beginning letter having the same letter as the character. So Jack fits Joker simply because of the J. So Brave may actually just be a code name for a fighter that begins with a B. Now, obviously, that opens up for about 1 million video game characters. Everyone from very likely characters like Bandana Waddle Dee, characters people were really guessing at and hopeful for, to never ever going to happen characters like Buck Bumble. So yeah, I mean, just going off of a letter is a little tough, but there is a top contender here, and that is Banjo from BanjoKazooie. Now, there are actually a lot of things going in Banjo's favor. Now, Banjo is, of course, a Brave character, but I think if Brave was the codename, it would have more to do with simply starting with a B. Now, Banjo has a lot of things going for him. There's a lot of talk that a Microsoft character will probably get into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. A bunch of leakers have been saying Steve and specifically Minecraft content would eventually make its way into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but that does mean getting Microsoft on board. And even if we did get Steve, it doesn't necessarily mean we can't get another Microsoft character. Microsoft's a pretty big company, and BanjoKazooie has been requested to get into Smash and honestly just to get back with Nintendo for a very, very long time. Phil Spencer tweeted a while back that he'd be totally fine with this. Banjo is from the company Rare, who used to work for Nintendo and was bought by Microsoft, but people have really wanted them to come back to Nintendo for a long time in some form. Specifically, BanjoKazooie and Smash has been wanted for a long time. And we've actually seen some hints towards this in the game itself. Data miners have found spirits in the game's code that are not actually obtainable, but the names and the data for them are still in there. And those spirits were for the game Jet Force Gemini and Blast Core. Those are two N64 Rare series titles. So that could be when, Banjo does get in the game as DLC, that those rare spirits suddenly become unlocked in the game. Maybe Banjo was possibly going to be a base roster character, so those were already in the data, or maybe they were working on DLC and the base game at the same time and just forgot to completely clear out the code for these rare spirits. Either way, we do have physical data in the game that actually points towards getting a rare character, who would almost certainly be BanjoKazooie. Now, as far as the stats go for Brave, they actually fit Banjo extremely well. Having a floaty jump would fit perfect for having Kazooie on his back, and then also having that slide. I can't think of another character that fits better than Banjo. So Banjo has this slide movement in his games, and that would fit him really well. Again, there's not many characters in Smash Ultimate that have this. The only one I'm really sure of is Luigi, so yeah, it could fit. As far as the height for the character goes, once again, Banjo could be about Ness's height. A lot of times you think of Banjo being bigger, but actually in Diddy Kong Racing and even his own game, Banjo is quite small compared to most of the other characters. Sakurai tends to notice stuff like this and is very true to how the character looks from their games. So having Banjo's height seem shorter than most people would guess, but actually fit how he is in his games could work here. Brave's weight is 101, which puts him heavier than Mario, but lighter than Link. So heavier than, Mario, who's just a lone kind of cartoonish character, but lighter than someone who has armor and weapons on them. Banjo being a bear with a bird in his back, it fits. Again, the floatiness and the slide jump really fits the character. So whether or not Erdrick is in the game or not as our square character, and whether or not Brave is actually for Erdrick or for Banjo, I do think Banjo has a pretty good shot and could really come out of left field and be the character that the Brave codename is actually for. It is possible here. So yeah, Banjo seeming pretty likely. I'd put him up there with Sora and Erdrick as our most likely possible Brave candidates. And now for a couple final possible Brave candidates. One is Arthur from the Ghosts and Goblins series. He's a knight, and therefore Brave and Bravery would fit the character very well as a codename. He's also one of the few NES characters that isn't in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but has that sort of legendary NES status, the way that characters like Snake from Metal Gear, Mario, Link, Samus, Mega Man, these characters are the type of characters that if we were still back in like 1990 and you're just choosing characters from the NES library to be in an Ultimate Nintendo fighting game, you would probably pick Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins. So yeah, I mean, he's already been in some fighting games before, and just a pretty interesting choice. Someone I don't see people guessing too often, but the fact that a short, armored character like Erdrick is being guessed at a lot, I'm surprised that Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins isn't also being looked at. Arthur's a Capcom character, and obviously Capcom's already involved in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'd put Arthur a bit lower on the possibilities for Brave, but he could be a very out of left field character that I think a bunch of people would be kicking themselves if it happened that they weren't really guessing at him. Not super likely in my opinion, but not impossible either. And then my final candidate for who Brave could be, I promised I'd mention this one, and that's Leroy Jenkins. So if you know your internet memes from way back when, old internet videos and stuff, Leroy Jenkins was this video of WoW and this guy who ran in, so that fits bravery very well. His whole thing is that he's super brave and ran in, super brave and super dumb for running into a very hostile area when he shouldn't have before everyone was ready. So yeah, I mean, I severely doubt that Smash would make a nod to that, but I promised people I'd mention him here when I was asking what characters people thought Brave might be. So yeah, Leroy Jenkins, there you go. That's my last possible Brave candidate. So there you go, guys. That is everyone I can think of that could fit the codename Brave character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. If I had to put money on it, I'd say it's most likely Erdrick. However, I think Sora and Banjo, and possibly a Bravely Default character, could also be taking that spot. I think they have a pretty good chance at it, but Erdrick is still the most likely one, in my opinion, and seemingly in most people's opinions. So anyway, once again, if you have any ideas for characters other than the ones I mentioned, or any other reasons why some of the ones that I mentioned could fit for codename Brave, yeah, leave a comment below and let me know. I'd love to see that, love to hear that. So yeah, who do you think will probably be getting as our DLC fighter that fits the codename Brave? So once again, thank you guys for all the subscribes, all the likes. It really helps out the channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do so, or like the video, or leave a comment, whatever you want. Until next time, have a good one.